Number 15. The Beautiful Mummy. It's hard to imagine a mummy being described as beautiful, but that's exactly how archaeologists describe one mummy that they uncovered in a Chinese graveyard in 2003. With her pitch-perfect skin, hair, and eyelashes, she became known as the Beauty of Zaya-He. This region offers up some of the finest naturally preserved mummies of all times because of their air quality and freeze-drying nature. That's what kept her so beautiful. Even a millennium after she passed, the woman was surrounded by pouches of herbs and was in a wooden boat. Judging by her felt wool hat, she is believed to be a priestess and village leader, frozen in time. The woman's epic history remains a mystery. Number 14. Lady Xuanjui. 2,000 years after her reign, this queen would re-emerge from the past when her tomb was unearthed from its burial place in China. The lady had passed away in 163 BCE, but even after these 2,000 years hidden away, her brain and other internal organs were 100% intact. She is considered to be the best preserved mummy ever, uncovered with a complete medical profile compiled by archaeologists. Her real name was Xuanjui, but most called her Lady Dai, or the Diva Mummy. With such a complete medical profile, the autopsy showed a number of health issues, including lower back pain, clogged arteries, heart issues, and being overweight. The body of this ancient woman offers great insights into the time and the individual herself. See, creepy mummies aren't always a bad thing. Number 13. Aitygilov. In 1927, at 75 years old, this Russian monk knew he was nearing his passing, and he asked his fellow lamas to start his rites and meditation ceremonies. They didn't want to do it because his heart was still beating, so this monk chose to meditate in solitude. His solitude wasn't long, as other monks joined him until his last breath. In his final testament, Aitygilov requested that he be put sitting in lotus posture as he was in his final moments. His request was granted, and he was placed in this position in a pine box. He now has a devoted following. Some believe he is living still, but in a nirvana-like state. Others consider him one of Russia's most sacred Buddhist objects. His body continues to be on display, is sometimes kept outside, and receives no special preservative treatment. A miracle, maybe, or perhaps Aitygilov is just in deep meditation. Number 12. The Croatian Woman. Preserved people are one thing. Those who are found having passed away long ago in place are another. 42 years after Hedviga Golek was reported missing, she was found where she'd last been, relaxing in her favorite armchair, in front of her black and white TV with a cup of tea. Born in 1924, Hedviga is believed to have passed in 1966 at only 42 years old. She was reported missing, but most neighbors simply thought she'd moved away. The solution to her case was a bit delayed, seeing that nobody was using the flat. Tenants had been hounding the authorities since 1970. City services even requested that someone look into the flat, but nothing was ever done. Hedviga was only discovered when her flat was broken into by police, who were sent there in 2008 to find out who owned the place. The officers on the scene described it like stepping back in time. Not a stone had been unturned in the place for more than 4 decades. Cobwebs filled the joint, and everything was as Hedviga had left it, right down to the very last drop of tea in her cup. Although Hedviga is presumably not as well preserved as many on this list, her apartment was certainly frozen in another era, and it's a mystery how the young woman's passing went undiscovered for so long. Number 11. Man of the Hole. The so-called man of the hole is exactly what you'd expect him to be, a man who basically lives in holes. Also known as the last tribesman or the loneliest man on earth, this unidentified man was found in 1996 to be living solo in the Amazon rainforest. As most indigenous people seem to be, the man of the hole is frozen in time as the last living member of his tribe, although which tribe or which language he speaks are both a complete mystery. He was discovered on a swath of land enveloped in cattle ranches where he built homes of straw and big leaves under which he dug narrow and deep holes to live in, hence his nickname. He didn't stay put in another hole. He'd continuously abandon one for another. Some think that the man hid in these holes and also trapped animals there in order to eat. Did the discovery of this solitary man bring him out of his hole and into the modern world? No, in fact, the man will shoot an arrow at you if you venture too close to his territory, which a governmental protection agency for indigenous peoples has designated. Individuals or organizations cannot build or trespass on the 42.5 square miles of his territory. The mysterious man, frozen in the past, will live there forevermore, or at least until he meets his maker or his fellow long-lost tribesmen. Number 10. Arctic Civilization Mummies. Have you ever wondered what might be buried beneath the permafrost of Siberia or other areas of the Arctic? You might guess woolly mammoths or other prehistoric creatures, but you might not guess that mummified people of an ancient Arctic civilization might quite literally be frozen in time in the ice. That's just what some archaeologists discovered in the Siberian permafrost, which crosses the polar circle on the coast of the Arctic Ocean. 2 centuries old people, those of a baby and an adult, were uncovered there, where they'd been wrapped in copper along with fur, tree bark, and textile materials. The infant, who was possibly 6 months old, judging from its size, had been wrapped with pieces of copper kettle, while the 5-foot 7-inch adult had been wrapped with copper plates. Why copper? Likely because the people might be preserved with its antimicrobial properties. The region's permafrost, with its average yearly temperature being 21.7 Fahrenheit or -5 degrees Celsius, also served as a natural refrigerator that aided this preservation. The pair of mysterious folks will be studied in a lab, the studies of which include historical analysis, forensics, and genetic testing. Not much is known about the inhabitants of the region, so once the examination of the two is complete, the archaeological community may have a somewhat clearer picture of who once existed here. Until then, these people will remain frozen in time. Number 9. Casts of Pompeii. This list would be remiss without an entry about the famed city of Pompeii. Pompeii flourished from about the 6th century BC until its destruction, when a nearby volcano erupted in 79 AD. The civilization and its entire city was frozen in time. Today, a visit to Pompeii is a walk through a centuries-old complex, once buried and then dug up for all to behold. Mosaic tiles still cover the walls and floors, statues still stand, paint stays permanently on the walls. All of this is incredible to witness, but the most incredible and horrifying pieces are the casts of Pompeii. The townspeople are frozen in time, most of them likely passed from the 572 degree Fahrenheit or 300 degrees Celsius gas cloud that emitted from the volcano, rather than from the hot lava that would eventually erupt. Their faces are frozen in terror as the hot cloud of ash finally ensnares them. The people were softened and ossified by the heat as they were buried in stone and ash, preserved for future civilizations to uncover. Pompeii was rediscovered in the 16th century, but excavation waited until the 18th century, when scientists were able to detect and extract the people intact. The casts are often displayed to the public, rather than the ossified people. Number 8. Green Boots. Mount Everest, the highest mountain in the world, is one of the greatest feats for many of the world's greatest mountain climbers. At around 29,000 feet, Everest is regularly challenged not only by professional climbers, but by those amateurs simply looking for a thrill, hoping to check Goliath off their bucket lists. That's why, as most people who've read up on climbing Mount Everest know, the Goliath is riddled with people, around 200 to be exact, of those challengers that didn't make it out. While many of these people have been identified and accounted for, as expeditions know those they were responsible for who didn't come back, there's one person up on the mountain that remains a mystery. A landmark known as Green Boots found his eternal resting place on the mountain outside a limestone cave somewhere in 2001. He was situated there, lying on his right side, his face covered in unidentifiable until at least 2014, when he was mysteriously removed. His lime-colored boots were the only identifying factor, the only clue to who he might have been. The mystery will forever remain frozen in time. However, as the body was either removed for burial or otherwise whitewashed from the mountainside. Number 7. Siberian Princess. Yet another discovery of a mysterious person found frozen in time was uncovered again in the Siberian permafrost. This one is no ordinary ancient citizen, however. She's known as a princess. The princess was discovered in the mountains, in a border area near the crossroads between Mongolia and Russia, as well as Kazakhstan and China. 2 men were discovered near the princess, as they're believed to be warriors. The princess herself was a well-respected warrior too, with incredibly intricate tattoos. The warrior men alongside her were also tatted up. These tats, frozen in time, have been described as phenomenal and incredible. The tattoos aren't the only remarkable feature of this princess. The 25-year-old was also dressed to the nines and was surrounded by ornaments of gold, bronze, wood, and felt, as well as a meal of horse and sheep meat. She and the warriors are believed to be members of people who were alive and kicking around the 5th century BC. Number 6. The Maiden of the Mountain. Whether frozen by circumstance, natural or unnatural, people preserved through the ages can bring the modern world some insight into what life was like during that person's era, how they may have passed away, and even some historical insight into diseases of the past. The 500-year-old Incan mummy, found frozen in the ice of an Incan burial platform in 1999, proved a petri dish for all 3. Also known as the Maiden, she was discovered buried at 22,000 feet in a volcano. One of the expedition members, U.S. archaeologist Johann Reinhard, said, "The doctors have been shaking their heads and saying they sure don't look 500 years old, but as if they'd passed a few weeks ago." He admitted that the mummy's hand gave him a chill because they appeared like those of a living person. No doubt these hands would give you the chills too. Number 5. The Child Mummy. Those who have lost a child might understand Mario Lombardo's misery completely. After he lost his 2-year-old daughter, Rosalia, to pneumonia in 1920, he was so devastated that he wanted to preserve her little image for eternity. The techniques used were fortified by keeping Rosalia in a catacomb in a glass coffin atop a wooden pedestal. After some time, they placed her in a sealed glass chamber full of nitrogen gas. She now lies frozen in time in the catacombs of Palermo, Sicily. Number 4. John Torrington. In 1846, John Torrington, a sailor of Sir John Franklin's failed Arctic expedition, passed away on Beechley Island in Canada. He was just one of many passings during the expedition. Torrington was one of the 3 preserved people found there over a century later. The area's freezing temperatures are to thank for the well-preserved people. Although Torrington's name is known, the rest of his identity remains a mystery. Any historical record of the man is non-existent. All anyone knows is that he was a stoker on the HMS Terror, one of the 2 ships of Franklin's expedition, and that 20-year-old Torrington may have been the expedition's first passing. Digging through the frozen permafrost to uncover Torrington was a struggle, but finally, 5 feet under, they hit upon the coffin. The handwritten plaque nailed to his coffin reads that he passed on January 1st, 1846. Surprising, considering the circumstances. The young man's coffin was very well designed, with white linen trim, blue fabric, and mahogany. The coffin took a long while to open, as it had been frozen into place, and the lid solidly ice-closed and nailed shut. Once they got the lid open, they used hot water to melt the ice below, after which they first viewed Torrington's body. He was wrapped with linen strips, and his face was covered in fabric. He wore a gray button-up shirt. His toes and hands were very lifelike, while his skin, though somewhat leathery, had not decayed whatsoever. When they removed the fabric from his face, the man was staring straight at them, his gaze frozen in time. Number 3. The Wet Mummy. A construction worker in China was plugging away with his backhoe in March 2012, preparing the foundation for a new road, when suddenly he happened upon something more than dirt and rock. A 600-year-old mummy from the Ming Dynasty was discovered in a watery tomb below ground smack dab in the center of town. The mummy was remarkably well preserved, 5 feet tall, and found in fine clothing and jewelry, which included a ginormous jade ring and silver hairpin in her hair. A silver exorcism coin was found on her, commonly placed there to defend against evil spirits. Why is this mummy so well preserved? Victor Mayer, an archaeologist from the University of Pennsylvania, said, "Wet mummies survive so well because of the anaerobic conditions of their resting places, but he believes the preservation of this mummy wasn't purposeful. I don't know of any evidence that Chinese ever intentionally mummified," Mayer said, crediting the mummification to the right environment. Whether nature or nurture preserved the wet mummy, she is now frozen in time at her state. Number 2. Evita. If you were alive in Argentina during the 1940s to 50s, you would know how important Eva Perón, aka Evita, was to the Argentinian people. As film director Fabian Russo Lenore puts it, in all of Latin America, only one other woman has aroused an emotion, devotion, and faith comparable to those awakened by Mary. In many homes, the image of Evita is on the wall next to Mary. Being akin to the Mother of God, it's no wonder that this national treasure and First Lady of President Juan Perón was so idolized that, instead of placing her in the ground, they decided to preserve her after she passed away in 1952. A renowned anatomy professor, Dr. Pedro Anna, performed the preservation to perfection. In fact, the doctor had done such a good job preserving Evita's body that the new government ended up taking her and stashing it away in Italy, where, according to legend, the body's caretaker fell in love with it and was driven insane. Sometime in the 1970s, Evita's remains were returned to her home country, where she was rightfully buried. Before we get to number 1, my name is Chills and I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you've ever been curious as to what I look like in real life, then follow me on Instagram at DylanIsChillinYT with underscores instead of spaces. I also have a Twitter at YT_chills where I post video updates. I'd really appreciate it if you followed me, and feel free to send me a DM if you have any questions or suggestions. Also, I recently created a subreddit where you can submit videos and stories for future lists. It's r/chillsnarrator and the link is in the description below. It's a proven fact that generosity makes you a happier person, so if you're generous enough to hit that subscribe button and the bell beside it, then thank you. This way you'll be notified of the new videos we upload every Tuesday and Saturday. If English isn't the only language you speak and you're interested in getting a shout out, click more, then add translations. By translating the video, not only will more people be able to watch it, but a link to your channel will be added in the description. Number 1. Missing Swiss couple. In August 1942, a Swiss couple, Marcelin, a shoemaker, and Francine, a school teacher, ages 40 and 37 respectively, mysteriously disappeared near the Alps. No one knew what happened to them. Strolling and singing, the couple had gone to a nearby meadow to milk their cows, never to be seen or heard from again. They left behind 6 children. The family had no people to bury, but 75 years later in 2012, the mystery was solved. A maintenance worker discovered the pair, frozen and well preserved in a glacier that had receded, located at 8,500 feet above sea level. The glacier is surrounded by a number of ski resorts, and each year, it loses about a meter of ice. One of the resort directors said in a radio television Swiss interview, "From afar, it looked like small rocks, but there were too many in the same place." Nearing the place, he found decades-old boots, a glass bottle, watches, mess kits, and backpacks. Looking closer, they'd recovered the couple who were frozen in time in the era of the 1940s, wearing the clothes in vogue during that period. It's believed that the couple had fallen into the glacier's crevice. The people were transferred from the Alps for further inspection. The youngest of the 6 children left behind, and now 79 years old, said that the children had forever been in search for their parents. "We thought that we could give them the ceremony they deserved one day," she said. She also said that she felt a deep sense of calm about the find because the mystery was now solved. Well, the mystery is no more. Who knows how many other people are hidden in the ice? Thanks for checking out this video. Be sure to subscribe because we upload new countdowns every Tuesday and Saturday. Or if you're still not convinced, here are some of our other videos that I think you'd like. Enjoy!